Part 3 of the series on the historical Suurberg Pass covers the central section from the 9.5 kilometer mark to the 17.6 kilometer point. The Eastern Cape frontier, running roughly from Port Elizabeth and the Great Fish River inland towards Somerset East and Pearston, was the edge of early European colonial settlement. As Dutch farmers and later British colonial forces pushed eastwards and north from the Cape Colony, they encountered established Xhosa societies whose livelihoods depended on cattle herding, farming and communally using the grazing lands. These fundamentally incompatible ideas about land use and ownership lay at the root of the prolonged conflict. From 1779 to 1780, under the Dutch colonial governance, the Great Fish River was declared the eastern boundary of the Cape Colony, designating the lands beyond it as Xhosa territory. But this was more of a political line on a map than a manageable frontier in practice. Both settlers and Xhosa people continued to cross it for grazing, trade and seasonal movement, breeding competition and tension. The Fish River boundary signalled the formal start of what became known historically as the Cape Frontier Wars or the Xhosa Wars. Over the next 100 years, a series of 9 clashes erupted between European settlers and various Xhosa groups. These clashes were not continuous battles, but intermittent episodes of intense warfare triggered by disputes over cattle, land encroachment and colonial policy. The First Frontier War began with Dutch colonial commandos pushing into the fertile Zuurveld, the region between the Great Fish and Sundays rivers, encompassing much of today's Somerset East and Pearston areas. As the settlers sought grazing land, Xhosa peoples resisted incursions, leading to armed confrontations. Under British rule in 1806, colonial forces adopted more aggressive approaches. In 1811 and 12, during what is commonly called the Fourth Frontier War, British troops under Lieutenant Colonel John Graham drove some 20,000 Xhosa and allied Kuku across the Fish River and established military presence by erecting a chain of forts. Graham's headquarters later became Grahamstown, now called Makanda, which was founded on a colonial garrison town. Grahamstown was founded in 1812 as a military settlement and soon became the centre of British colonial power on the eastern frontier. Commanded by British officers, it anchored a network of forts and blockhouses intended to control movement between colonial lands and Xhosa territory. One of the most dramatic episodes occurred in 1819, the Fifth Frontier War, when the Xhosa prophet warrior Nkele led thousands of warriors in an attack on the town. Though ultimately repulsed by a small garrison of colonial troops, this battle became one of the defining clashes of the frontier era. Grahamstown's very existence embodied the colonial strategy, a hardened base from which British forces and settlers could attempt to pacify and eventually annex frontier lands. In time, it grew beyond a fort into a town with schools, churches and institutions that marked deeper colonial settlement, but that development was inseparable from the region's violent past. Somerset East, originally part of the expansive Somerset district, emerged in the early 19th century as a semi-military and agricultural outpost. The district was exposed to the ebb and flow of frontier pressures. Settlers in the area were often exposed to raids and retaliation from Xhosa fighters when livestock was stolen or farmland encroached upon. The area was also the site of internal settler tensions such as the Slagters Neck Rebellion in 1815 and 16, where Boer farmers rebelled against British colonial authority, resulting in executions that fueled Afrikaner resentment. Nearby Pierston, on the Brinkjeshoogte Plateau, lay along early routes into the Karoo hinterland and was another frontier grazing area for settlers. Its hills and passes echoed the transition from humid fertile coastal zones to the harsher drier landscapes preferred by Boer pastoralists. Don't miss part 4 of the Suurberg Pass.